To I ruined a family cruise by bringing weed. This was a decade ago. I was living in CA and using weed to combat anxiety, ADHD, and insomnia. My mom called. My father was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. He was given 6 months to a year to live. I am close with my parents and it was pretty devastating news. I took a leave to drive to Florida, where they had retired, to spend some time with them. I drove because I needed my medication and was really nervous about flying with it. My folks also don't approve of cannabis or any drugs, so having my car would give me a place to smoke privately. 3 days of driving later, I arrived. Aunt and uncle, Dad's rich pastor brother, were at the house. They announced they were paying for a Caribbean cruise for the whole family. The cruise was for 10 days and left in 5 days. I panicked. I began to desperately think of an excuse not to go because the thought of dealing with 10 days of no weed terrified me. The problem was that I had to head back home 2 days after the cruise, so my time with Dad would be short. I could not come back out until summer, and wouldn't forgive myself if that was too late. That's when I made a plan. This is where I fucked up. I read online that I needed a doctor's note for medications that were controlled substances and to declare them on arrival. I deduced that since I am from a state with legal medical weed, I could bring medicine on board. I am pretty creative with Photoshop, and I had some scans of medical documents, tests, and receipts from my doctor. The issue, and my downfall, these were records for my dad, from when they moved out east. We shared the same doctor in CA. We also share the same first and last name, and middle initial, so those I didn't need to change. Shortly I had altered a treatment plan and a prescription for my dad's gout, to a medical marijuana document for me. So I thought. The day of the cruise, I convinced my cousins to come an hour early with me to the port so I would not be boarding with my folks. I told them I had a prescription and some medication I didn't want to concern my folks with at this time. They pried. I told them it was for weed. They gave me high fives. At security I proudly produced my documents and my professionally packaged weed. To my surprise, they took both, bagged it and said it would go to the ship's doctor who would contact me. An hour later, everyone had boarded and the whole crew of us, 15 or 17 I think, were gathered on deck. All enjoying a drink and some snacks from the buffet while we waited for our rooms and luggage. The doctor and my medication were on my mind. Sure enough, my name is announced to report to medical. Everyone, including my dad, assumed it was for him, same name, and he gets up to go to medical. All I could think was to tell my mom to relax and I went with Dad. I hoped the receptionist would clarify it was for me and I would have a private convo with the doctor and get my medicine. I was wrong, very wrong. The nurse asked for my dad's ID. I identified myself as the son with the same name, but she just asked my dad if he wanted me to go into the office with him to speak to the doctor. Dad said yes. My stomach was in my throat. We waited in the exam room for a couple minutes and the doctor came in and sat down. He looked right at my dad and said, "You're dealing with some very serious medical issues. I just spoke with your doctor and I am afraid that we are not equipped to deal with possible issues or complications on this ship." He continued that he would have to disembark within an hour and could not go on the cruise. He did go on to explain that he had called the CA doctor as he felt something was not right with the documents I had made. The receptionist asked for the patient number, which I neglected to change, and informed him that all the records had been forwarded to my dad's new doctor in Florida. The ship's doctor then called my dad's current doctor, who said my dad was really sick and had not returned urgent calls regarding his test results. I had never seen my dad so deflated. Doc produced my bag of medication and told me that if I was getting off the ship with my dad, I could pick it up at security when I left. I truly wished it was me who was dying in that moment. All I could say was, "Sorry, this is my fault," and we walked in silence. We went back up and joined the group. Dad took Mom aside for a quick conversation, then they announced they were getting off the ship and wanted everyone else to enjoy the cruise. Everyone initially wanted to leave with them, but after some tears and hugs it was decided that everyone would continue on. I opted to leave with my parents. I spent the next 2 weeks of at their home. It was some of the best bonding/healing family time in my life. The story about the weed came out to all, shock and awe, in our religious clan. My folks actually told me I was free to smoke on the deck. They came to find it humorous. My uncle was furious. He came over after the cruise and found me and Dad in the backyard. I had just lit a blunt, and Uncle started in on Dad about family and respect. Dad took the joint from my hand, took a small puff, looks at my uncle and says, "My doctor said it might help my appetite." My uncle left, but he is not a bad guy and he did call and apologize the next day. We enjoyed a few more blunts over the next days. I ended up sending Dad a few care packages from Cali, and was able to spend 3 weeks with him in the summer. My dad made it to the following Christmas. Maybe as we approach Christmas this story surfaced for me. Love you Dad, miss you. TLDR, I took weed on a cruise and ended up outing my dad's advanced illness, resulting in him being refused on the boat. Apologies for formatting/spelling. Edit. Wow, thanks for taking the time to read and comment, it's been educational. I am surprised at the amount of people that are convinced that pharmaceuticals are superior to natural plant medicine. I guess the $375 million big pharma spent on lobbyists this year is working. I will stand by my medicine based on my decades of personal experience, my own doctor's support and its 50-100-year documented use as a healing plant. That said, believe every human has a right to dominion over their own body, so you do you. Respect to those who called me out. If this were AITA, I am with you, a-hole for the win. To those who wanted to label me an addict, that may be a valid evaluation based on the story provided. That I can say, I am healthier by every metric of mental and physical health than I was a decade ago. I rarely drink, I don't take any pharma, and I use cannabis less, and in a more conscious way than before. Special thanks to those who reported me to Reddit as maybe needing help. I did not know that was possible, and it is good to know if I encounter someone struggling. AITJ for telling my entitled, neglectful aunt to STFU. Before I start I need to say our characters. Karen, who is my entitled aunt, chill uncle, entitled Gremlin 1. Entitled Gremlin 2. Me, op. My wife, op wife. My daughter, op daughter. Op mom. Op grandma. Op's grandma's boyfriend. Okay, this all started a little bit before Christmas where my mom was saying about going on holidays, so I said me op wife and op daughter would come if they want, and then my grandma says I'll come to, so they invite my uncle who hasn't been with Karen for about 2 to 3 months, and then when the talk of a holiday comes up Karen speeds up with entitled Gremlin 1 and 2. And she is being super nice, like for instance she thinks if she is nice to me she will win my immediate family over, which doesn't work because she was being it to my wife and daughter, so it ends up her making us pay a extra 2-3K each, which is a lot of money, so I'm already peeved of with Karen, and then Christmas comes around and she's being overly nice to everyone and nobody really bought it, but God loves a trier. And then New Year's where everything was fine until we got Chinese. Entitled Gremlin 1 started to take sauce in a pot on the Grand's BF's furniture and she gets told off, making Karen angry AF, and then leaving comes around and my daughter say do we have to, as all young children do, and she says she's just like EG2, and at the very moment EG2 is dangling of the banister, so chill uncle says shut up Karen, and I say STFU, you weren't in the picture when CU had no more money, and now there's a holiday, you are quick to run back to him.